Thank you very much for joining us today. I am speaking with Linda King. Linda, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, Sally, and welcome to everyone.
So, Linda, you've done quite a bit of traveling, and you were a former banker and travel agent. So, how do we combine the love of travel and going places, but also having money management skills that kind of allow us to do the travel that we would like to do, and still, have a comfortable lifestyle that we want?
Sure, yeah, so travel, as everyone loves to travel the world. We're all travelers at heart, I think. But to travel a lot, which is the aim for a traveler, you need to watch your budget and make sure that you're doing it in a savvy way. So, you've got all sorts of travel, starting from backpacking all the way up to luxury travel. It really depends on your budget, but if you're someone that wants to travel in, sort of quite good quality, but
Mhm.
also save money, it's what you do to prepare before you travel. So you stay within that budget. And if you could stay within the budget, it means that you're not going to owe anything when you come back and you can then start planning for the next trip. So what I do with the Smart Travelista is we love traveling, we love saving money. We combine the two so we can travel more, but in quality.
Yeah, and I think some good points there is there's many ways to travel. And so um I feel for me because I've traveled a lot and I've been to a lot of places. I'm now before it used to be get to as many places as I can get to, check off a number of places and then get to the next place. And that was great for the younger years. Um,
Mm,
but now I'm more of that kind of slow travel, quality time, maybe doing a little bit less. Before, when I was doing more, I wouldn't really care about my accommodation, right? Because I was never there. It was a place to get to exhausted, go to sleep, get up, shower, be gone all
mm,
day. And so for me at that time, I didn't really wanna spend a lot. I still liked having my own room. I've never really been one for hostels. I like my own space, my privacy, and my own bathroom. For me, that was
mm,
the biggest things. Um, but then I was never there. So outside of that, a 3-star hotel was fine. Now I spend more time and I sometimes I work a little bit while I travel. So I want something nicer and I do more things. But there's also a number of things that people can do, um, planning ahead of time, group tours, walking tours, and things like that, that sometimes where all you do is give a tip or pay what
mm,
you would like to do, and I always recommend those to people when they're going to a new destination because I've liked them myself. I've liked the
mm,
fact that I go and I get a good kind of idea of the layout of some of the main key points of the city that I'm in. And there's been times that I thought, "Wow, this is a great area I didn't know about, I wanna go back to." And then other times of, "Oh, this was on my list. Okay, glad I saw it, but I don't need to come back to this area anymore because I've kinda seen what's all here."
hmm Yeah, I would agree with that. There's so many ways that you can save. And I think it breaks down into pre-travel and also while you're traveling. So pre-travel, it's always good to do your research.
Mm.
But some people don't like to do the research because they go, oh, it's time consuming. But that research is worth money. It really is worth money. Also, for me, I'm always an early booker. So if you're an early
Mm.
booker, you actually get advance rates, which are going to be cheaper than if you leave it to the last minute. But again, Sally, everyone's different. Some people like to wait to the very end and then book it then. Other people like to prepare. So it depends on whether you're a planner or you're a bit of a fly by the seat of your pants person. You can do either of that. Another way I also do a lot of is midweek travel. So if you try and go on the weekends, you're paying a lot more and in the peak times. But if you can do midweek, if you're your employer allows you to leave at that time, then that's a good thing as well. And yes, absolutely. With the when you're traveling, the free walking tours are the best thing I reckon they've invented. You're getting taken around by someone who's a local. They're showing you the best of that city or that destination, and then it's up to you what you want to donate to them. And any tip that you give is appreciated. There's another thing that I do also beforehand is I Google free things to do at
Mhm.
wherever it is, because there is a lot of free museums and other activities that you can do that are free. And again, that's the research. That's where the money is going to be saved, because if you do these things, say for instance, London, they've got a lot of free museums that you can go and see, but you're not going to know that unless you do a Google search. So there's
Right.
there's quite a few things that people can do to actually save money. And the aim, as I said, is to save money, more travel. We get to see more of the world. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's always a good thing.
Or even sometimes too, if we can save money on and, like, if you love museums and you can see museums and there's a lot of free, museums to go to, then maybe if you wanna go to that special restaurant that you've heard about that is a bit more pricey, you'd be like, "I can afford to do that and go because
Mm,
I've still done all these other things, and they've been free or a lower cost." Because
mm.
every major city has a lot of things that, people can do for free, and check out. So that's always a great thing.
Yeah, I would agree.
One of the things that I do too as I travel is I do house and pet sitting. And
Mm,
so that has been great for me. I When I first started, I would do them for about a week, was kind of a lot of available for a week or 2 weeks, but since I've been doing it for, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the calendar now, I think almost a decade. It's been I think
mm,
2015 was, the first sit that I did. So now I look at ones that are substantially longer, 1, 2, 3 months, because I'm also working at the same time, and that is a great way because the most expensive things first is the accommodation. Paying for those
mm,
hotels can become very expensive, and then having to eat out all the time if you're there. So with doing that house and pet sitting, I save a substantial amount of money because I mean, I can still eat out if I want, but I'm cooking and they have
mm.
everything in the house that's needed for cooking. And so also being long term, I don't feel as rushed to, "Oh, I need to go here, and then I wanna check out here, and I wanna do this," that it can be a little bit more of a slower, relaxed pace of travel.
Yeah, there's so many options like that. Yeah, I think that's the wonderful thing about travel. It doesn't have to be your normal hotel, Airbnb. There's so many things, and it's up to, whatever is your like. So, if you love to pet sit or house swap, it's really
Mm.
great. And yeah, I think, you've got all sorts of budgets, all sorts of things that people like to do. That's the beauty. One of the beautiful things I think about travel is that you can make it your own, and it doesn't have to be like everyone else. So yeah, I love the travel. I know I'm talking to a converted here as well. Um, but yeah, I think be brave when you travel. Be open to things that are different and maybe don't fit the mold and that take you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to be open, and so a lot of people here that are listening, have been travelers or are looking to move abroad or combination of both. Generally, they've traveled a bit and looking to move, and part of that is, to find the right place to move to, we need to travel ahead of time and check it out, or maybe for some people, they've been going to the same place often,
Mm,
and finding those things to do because if we're gonna move, it's great to look at other places on what we like to call scouting trips. And you can do it as specifically to move, or it could be just places that you've traveled to in the past and to see what we really like about those places. And whether it's you're doing, as we've said, home exchange, pet sitting, Airbnb, those are great ways to be able to stay more longer term than hotel because, I mean, a month in a hotel gets very, very expensive,
Mm,
and so it's a great way for people who are looking to potentially to relocate, finding those ways to get to different destinations and stay a bit more long term to think, "I love this," or "I've traveled here lots, but can I live here?" And now I'm here for a month and still do some of those activities if you love museums, because museums are changing. Um, Finding out when sometimes, like, I know in Barcelona, the first Sunday of every month, all the museums are free, everyone, and so that's great. However, in peak travel season, there are very long lineups to get into those museums, so need to think about that sometimes.
absolutely. I think another thing to consider also is what's the cost of living in the place that you're proposing to live in?
Mm,
Because if you've got a budget, so we'll throw an example out. You might have $10,000 that you intend to use for a number of months.
mhm,
If you're staying in an expensive place, $10,000, you're going to go through that really quickly. So again, about the research, you need to see what the cost of living is. What is food? What is, your rent or your boarding going to be, the lodging? Also, the safety. I would look at the safety of the place also, because if you're on your own, then you've got to consider that. Also, the medical and um, safety standards. So there's a lot to consider. It's different, I would say, Sally, when you're going on a holiday somewhere. You're looking at it through rose-colored glasses in a way. When you're actually
mhm,
living, when you're actually living there, it's a little bit different. It's reality. So we're a little bit out of reality when we're on holidays. That's what
mm,
travel is. We're going from the normal that we're used to in day-to-day life. So I think you've got to be really thoughtful about that also. So as an example, as an Australian, as you can tell by my accent, if I wanted to stay somewhere long term, Asia would be a really good place because it's very cost effective. If I wanted to maybe go to Europe, that might be a different story. I might have to cut how long I go there for, and or either that take more money with me. So these are the things that people need to consider. So for me, if you're going to choose a place to go to live, I would go there. Yes, absolutely go there the first time and just live it up and enjoy yourself. But then get really serious on your second or third visit if you do that many, and just really be more observant, have a look around, think to yourself, can I live here? You know,
right.
can I fit in with this culture? Can I fit in with this way of life? Is my budget gonna be enough? And do I enjoy being there? Because you've got to also enjoy it,
Mhm.
because you don't want to live somewhere that you don't enjoy because you won't stay there long.
Right. It's so true, and a few things, like, I completely agree with the rose-colored glasses because when we're on vacation, we're escaping reality. Like, our reality of our home, our work, our people, our life. We're escaping that reality of life, and I love going on vacation and escaping it and just enjoying, and nothing really matters, and who cares if I'm waiting for the train and the train is 15 minutes late, whatever, I'm on vacation, it doesn't matter. But if I was living there and the train is always 15 minutes late or 10 minutes or on time, then it's gonna start to get annoying and very frustrating. Um, as you said too, the cost of living, people often ask, "Well, what's the cost of living?" And I said, "Well, it's like me asking you, what's the cost of living in Australia?" Well, it depends.
Mm,
What type of a housing do you want? Do you want to be in the city, ocean view, countryside, farm, and food? Well, what do you eat? Do you eat high quality beef or chicken, or are you vegetarian or vegan or all organic? Or because again, it's going to be different. And so even when traveling and looking to relocate, when you go to the grocery store and you're buying things, is it more expensive? Is it cheaper? Or I have found in some situations, certain items are more expensive and certain items are cheaper, but I regularly buy in different places. And the biggest thing, as you said, is making sure you love a place. I was just talking with a tax expert, and the thing about that, when people are looking to move and they think about taxes and things, we were saying, does it really matter? I mean, to a certain degree, because when you move, there's in some depending upon what you're doing, there's incentives and treaties and things like that. But but he also said you find the place that you love and you really enjoy being there and you have the lifestyle you want, everything like does that tax rate really matter? Like if you really love it, because all of them are generally in most countries are progressive in a percentage. And they're not a
mm,
flat tax where it's where you have to pay X amount no matter what you make. Um, and so it's relation, but you really have to love the place that you're at. And so I always say, I say to people first, it's first find the country that you love being in and you enjoy going to. And I mean, you can spend so much time discovering new places in countries and then find what suits you best for the region. So if you like the mountains or you want the beach, do you like the city? Do you want rural? Do you prefer a farm? Do you want a village? Like, whatever it is that you like based on your lifestyle, your hobbies, your activities, the things that you like to do. And then from there, you can start to look at housing options because all places have from a lower cost to very expensive. Um, and we don't think of those as much when we're on vacation. Like we find an accommodation within our budget that works and that we like. Um, I find a lot of times people don't really pay attention to how much they're spending when they're eating out because, we're on vacation and unfortunately we generally just put it on the credit card. And then when we get that bill after, like, what? Spent how much?
yep,
And we wanna be aware, and if we can budget it more, whether we're on a long-term trip looking to move, or even if we are just on vacation and we say, we have X amount of money per day, and budget that way. And as we talked about, it's great to know, well, I want to do these things and I can do all these things are free. So if I do these couple of things, I'm not spending money doing that. So there's that restaurant, there's that opera, there's that live show that's going on, whatever it may be that people love, that then can be kind of the highlight of the trip because we've done some other things that we've enjoyed that were a bit of a lesser cost or allows us to stay longer.
yeah. I would also add to that, what's the exchange rate between your local currency to the other country? Because that's another thing to consider. Also, too, if you're using your credit card, as we all do, consider the rates you're paying also. So if you're paying in the local currency, usually it's more less expensive. Sometimes when you travel, they ask you whether you want to convert it to your local currency. It's good not to ever do that because you're actually paying more in fees. So as well as cost of living, I would also look at those things. And if it's got a really favorable exchange rate, well, that's going to help you and it's going to help you stay there longer. So it's, again, research, research, research.
And
And
those
then,
are actually some really good points to make of if you're going to be changing currency, to watch if you're going somewhere, let's say Europe in within 6 months. to start watching and seeing, okay, where has the currency rate been over the last year? What's low, what's been high, and then sometimes we can set up notifications to purchase when it hits a certain amount, and
Mm.
then to buy in advance knowing, oh, okay, well, I've got this, so I'm going to buy X amount that I'm going to bring for cash with me because it's a good rate, which can make a difference. But also very important to know that when using credit card to pay in the local currency, not your home currency, because you'll be paying more. And I think probably a lot of people think it's the opposite, that if I'm paying in my home currency, it makes sense because it's local to my card and not with the exchange. So the local currency is better than the home currency.
Yeah. And you always got to remember if you've got a Visa or a MasterCard, they're always going to have the best exchange rates. Um, so that's the one good thing about using the credit card. You're getting the best exchange rate. You're not getting sort of the daily rate. Obviously, banks and financial institutions can command the best rate, so for their own bottom line. But yeah, I would totally agree with that as well.
Yeah, that is true. I remember, and this was quite some time ago, I was at the bank. I mean, it was a bank that I'd been dealing with for, gosh, probably over 20 years. When I went to exchange money, I can't remember if it was that I was in the bank to exchange money exactly that time, or I was in the bank and I heard somebody say that they go to a currency exchange store in the mall because they get a better rate at the mall. And it's not one of those pop-up things like it was like it's a currency exchange business. Um, but they got a better rate and I went and checked it out and I was shocked that going to a mall where I have no relation with this company at all was giving me a better exchange rate than the bank that I had been dealing with that's been making money off of me for 20 plus years is not giving me the best exchange rate that's possible.
Yeah. And another thing, Sally, that is very interesting. Sometimes people will purchase currency before they leave their country.
Mhm.
You should never do it at the airport, that they will rip
Oh
you
yeah.
off. But it's interesting depending on the country. So if I take again Asia as an example, I will get better exchange rate on the ground as soon as I arrive out in the street than I will actually before I leave Australia. So depending on the country, and this is not for every country in the world because
Mm.
other places have different rules, but they will actually offer you better exchange rate as on one of those little street vendors than you will actually get in your own country. So,
Wow.
you've just got to know, and it's only with experience, I suppose. And if someone wants to go living in Asia, they'll understand this if they do a trip 2 or 3 times over there, and they'll go, okay, well, I got this amount of money, but this time I got more. So yeah, it comes with experience. And I'm sure it happens in other parts of the world, but there are certain rules around that as well. So we know never exchange your money at the airport because they will rip you off really badly. But
Mm.
sometimes better to get the money when you arrive in the place.
That's interesting to know. I never do money exchange at the airport because I know that's just that like to me, I know you're paying more because it's almost like they see that you're desperate to exchange
Mm,
and they make more money off of you that way. I do plan on going to Asia um later on. Well, we're in December now, so next year, probably within about the
mm.
next 6 months or so. Um, and so that's good to know that I will check out some rates as if I were to do it here, but it's very good to know that that I would probably be getting a better rate on the ground there than opposed to getting that exchange rate here. So I did not know that. So I
You'll
usually
save
like
yours.
to have a certain amount of cash with me just to, you get things started and to have small bills for little things before I arrive. So it's very good to know.
Yep. You will save a bit of money, Sally. Absolutely.
And for people who spend a lot, they'll save a lot of money. And it is those little things that unfortunately when we are traveling and going places, I mean, the first time we just don't know. Right?
Mm,
You don't know what you don't know. And that first trip is always, oh, this, okay, so this is how it works. So, oh, this is how that's done. Oh, this is how that's done. If I come back or when I come back, then I know for next time or to share that if friends go to be like, oh, do this, go here, don't do that, because we just don't know what we don't know.
yeah. I think, and that's the thing with travelers at the start. They're, so excited. They go to the places, as you mentioned before, money goes out the window. It's like we go restaurants here, we'll go drinking here, we'll do this, we'll do that. Come home to the credit card bill and nearly fall off your chair when you see how much you owe. Um, but but I think, if you want to do this long term, whether that be slow travel or going to another country, it's best to get that all out of your system
Mm.
with those trips and then get a little bit more serious about it. I think going to another country is really great because when you're a traveler or a tourist, you're really only touching, like scraping the surface of a place. You're not really finding out about that place. You're going to all the, the local attractions and the famous monuments and all the rest of it. But it's only when you've actually lived there and absorb that culture that you really understand a bit more, I think, about that place. And you're more informed also. I think it broadens your scope about the world and I think in a way makes you grateful for your own country as well, because it could be very different to what you're used to and what you've grown up with.
Yeah, I always say that with every country, there's benefits and challenges. And you have to
Mm.
go with an open mind because just because we do something in Canada the way that we do it doesn't mean that it's the best way to do it. I've been to places and I just thought, why doesn't Canada do things this way? It just makes more sense. And then it's been flipped where I go somewhere and I think, oh my gosh, why do they do it this way? It's so much better, more convenient, easier, whatever it may be in Canada than doing it this way. And we just need to, I mean, that's part of the travel is we appreciate certain things in certain countries. And then the opposite is we appreciate the new different ways that they do things in different countries. And there isn't necessarily a right or a wrong way. Once you kind of take that away, is it's not right, it's not wrong, it just is the way it is. Then then it's a little bit easier, I think, to handle and be more open-minded because it's just the way that they do it. Just because we do certain things in Canada or the US or Australia certain ways doesn't mean it's the right way or the best way or the wrong way or the worst way. It just is the way. And when we go to places with that open-minded of this is just how it's done here, then I think then we become more open to a lot of things. Whether it
Yes.
is the way things are done, how things are done, the celebrations that take place, why they take place, and we don't have to agree with it, and we should in my opinion, we should never agree with everything. We should always kinda question a little bit why. And that's a
Yeah.
like, why do I think this way is better? Why do I think this way is not as efficient? Why why do I believe what I believe? And having conversations sometimes about why. Like, why do you celebrate this way? What is it about this dish, this thing that you do, this celebration? Or why do you do when I was living in Costa Rica, you have to get your car through inspection once a year, and there's only a certain place that would do it, and it's like, and it's a pain in the butt. It takes all day, I'm not gonna lie, it's a pain in the butt, and but it's just the way that they do it there, and you have to just be like, "Okay, well, this is the way that that they do it and how the government makes sure that cars are roadworthy, they pass inspection, they're in good shape, and that's just the way it is. So, okay, that's the way it's done.
Yeah. I think traveling, you get tolerance, you
Mhm.
get an appreciation. I think you learn to respect other ways of life, whether you agree
Mm.
with them or not. Um, I think it makes you a better global citizen, actually, if I can
Mm.
say the pun. I
Mhm.
think it really does because, we're all human beings at the end of the day. We may do things differently, but yeah, it's a really good education, I think, traveling. The things that it gives you, you learn a lot about yourself and others. And yeah, you've got I suppose, got gratitude for your own life and how blessed we are really to be able to do this great thing called travel, because not a lot of people have that opportunity. So we've got to really appreciate that as well. So yeah, this world is so wonderful. Um, Sometimes there's things about it that isn't so wonderful, but I think inherently it's a really wonderful place to live. And my aim is to see as much of it before I leave this world. Um, and I'm
Mm.
sure you're the same. You know, it quite addictive, I think. I started traveling as a child and have not stopped since. So it's just, yeah, it's my life and I love it. And I wish that for everyone as well.
I love it too, and there's so many things that I've learned from travel that in ways I would have never have learned without it. And it's very different when you're standing in a square and on one of the walking tours because you can read stuff in a book and you're, oh, okay, that's what happened there. But when you're standing in the square and the person's telling you about what happened in that square 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 100 years ago, or 30 years ago when they were a kid and they were there and this is what was going on, and or all of the above, depending upon how old
Mm.
some of the squares are. It really is very different. And through travel, it really, for me, kind of opened my mind to my beliefs and my thoughts and my whatevers are not right. They are not wrong. They just are from my experience. And that's why I love having conversations with people who have different thoughts and beliefs, but who can actually, with a caveat, who can actually have a conversation about it. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of people that when we get into conversations, especially regarding politics or religion and things, they just, well, because that's the way it is, because it's this, and they just get angry and defensive without being able to really articulate it. And I think about things for myself. It's why do I think this? Why do I believe this? And sometimes I'm like, that's interesting. I'm not really sure why I believe it. And I have one of my best friends who we are pretty different when it comes to politics. And we'll have conversations. I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, so and so's, an idiot or did something stupid," or "Can you believe?" And she's like, "Well, no, that's not," and we'll have kind conversation. We are respectful and we'll kind of call each other out a little bit. I'm like, we'll be talking about something and I'll say, "No, but they said this, and so that means blah blah blah." And she'll say, "No, that means blah blah blah." And we'll kind of sometimes look at each other and be like, "Hmm." And there's been many times I'll say, "I need to look into that a little bit more." Because there's always within even just conversation, we have our interpretation of what was said. And anybody's listening, if you've gotten to an argument with somebody and they said, "Oh, well, you said blah, blah, blah," and the other person says, "Well, I didn't mean it that way." Right. And that's because maybe we weren't clear with what we said or the interpretation was different. And that happens in all ways, in religion, in politics, in arguments with our girlfriends, boyfriends, spouses, parents, kids, all of those types of things. And I think for me with travel, it's really kind of where I need to listen better and be more open and realize that because I'm interpreting something one way doesn't necessarily mean that that was the way that it was meant and to question it. And of course, just to be respectful, it's like, well, why do you think that? Or so you believe, and then I'll use my interpretation to see if that is a correct interpretation of what was said. And it really is interesting because then once we throw all the different cultures into that and realizing, I remember one time I was at a trade show, a travel trade show, and a guy came up to me one day and said, "Oh, I saw you having that argument with that guy yesterday." And I said, "Argument?" It's like I haven't argued with anybody here. What? I'm like, "Oh yes, oh that conversation." Like that was a great conversation, and we and I don't even remember what the topic was, but he was very I don't wanna use the word adamant, but he really truly believed his belief in this conversation we're having, and I really did with mine, and we were able to say, "Well, no, this is what happened," and anyway, at the end of the conversation, I just said, "You know what? We just need to agree to disagree, because
Mm.
if I had your experience, I absolutely would think and believe what you think. But because this has been my experience, I have this belief because it's my experience. I can understand and I can respect your belief that's different from mine because your experience is different. We're not here to change each other's minds. We weren't trying to do that at all. And after I just said, you know what? Thank you for such a great conversation to have that kind of depth of the conversation where we could both say what we believed and why and could justify it. And in the end, walk away with, I can understand that. If I had that experience, I would believe that too. But this is my belief because of mine, but I respect it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And perceptions are different. The way you perceive something could be different to someone else.
Mhm.
And it's all in the recognition or sort of the comprehension of what's being said. Whatever someone says, if we go back to politics, I won't get too much into that, but something might trigger
It's a great
somebody.
example to use because people are so divided on it.
Yeah, but you might say something that triggers somebody, and then
Mhm.
then they go off the deep end about it. And and but we can't control that. We can only
Right.
control ourselves and how
Mm.
we respond. But yeah, everyone's so different. But that's a great thing. It'd be a
Mhm.
boring world if we were all the same.
Oh, it would be so boring. It really would be.
Yeah.
It
So, but I can totally understand what you're saying. And if you're passionate about something too, to
Mhm.
someone else observing that could look like you're getting quite upset about it. But it's their experience of
Right.
seeing other people like that. So, but yeah, that's interesting. Um,
Mm.
that he would think that, and you were both just very passionate about what you were talking about.
Yeah. And at the end of the conversation, we were saying like that, "Thank you so much. That was one of the best conversations I've had in a long time." Because it was, there was reasons to why that belief was there. There was situations, and it was not just because it's true, because it's right, because it's I'm like, "That's," and when people say that, then I just think, "Okay." And I just know that there is no conversation to be had. I just wish a little bit more that people would ask themselves why they believe what they believe, and I like to do that when I travel and I'm in different countries, and I'm very respectful from it because a lot of things I don't know about different countries, and especially if it's I'll just use politics as an example. If there's an election going on or something, and I'll ask people, I'm like, "Well, I'm like, "I'm not from here, and I don't know." So I give that to kind of lower their guard if because I don't know how they're gonna respond, and I'll ask, like, "What's, the situation with politics? Who would you vote for and why?" And I'm just curious as somebody who doesn't know either your system or your people or what's going on. And I'll ask a number of people and just to get different views, different perspective, different thoughts. And to me it's interesting because I really don't like mainstream media very much. I find they're very biased, they're very one-sided, and no matter where you live, you get propaganda. And people get a little angry at me when I say that, but I don't care. If you live in the United States, you're getting US propaganda. You live in Canada, you're getting Canadian propaganda. If you live in Australia, you're getting Australian. When you live in Russia, you're getting Russian. When you're in China, you're getting Chinese. And people are like, well, yeah, of course, Russia and China. And I said, no, but it's everywhere. The difference is
Mm,
Russia and China generally they know they're getting propaganda, where a lot of
mm,
people in other countries don't think they are until they start traveling, until they start going to different places and then reading different headlines or seeing like because I have friends in various countries, what is important and in the news in one country is obviously not important in others, or if it is something that's big worldwide, how it's highlighted and talked about in different countries. And so when I do some new stuff, I always make sure that I look at that headline, especially like an easy example would be if we're like what's going on with the Gaza Strip, Hamas, Ukraine, Russia, like those kind of world things, to be looking at what they say in North America, what they say in Russia, what they may say in India or in some a country in Europe, and to kind of look at all of those places. And then somewhere in the middle of all of it, you got to kind of figure out where the truth is because each side wants their side to be winning and their side's doing the right thing and the other side is the worst and the most terrible, but both sides are doing what they're doing and both sides are doing bad in
yeah,
all of those situations. And so it's once I think people travel and more not just vacation travel, but kind of that slow long-term move abroad when they really kind of realize that we are getting propaganda on one side and we need to be open more and looking more at the bigger picture and having real conversations because at different times certain people certain countries certain places are like the worst place to be in the world. It's like really, or the most violent or the most whatever, or the terrorist attacks and the rioting, the city's on fire. And I've had that happen to me in Barcelona. Somebody messaged like, "Are you okay? Like the riots in Barcelona." And I said, "What are you talking about? It's all over the news. The riots in Barcelona, like all downtown." And I said, I walked 45 minutes from the beach through downtown and to my home, and I didn't see or hear a single thing. I really don't know. So I start messaging some friends. I'm like, "Hey guys, like was there's some rioting, something going on here?" And then one friend said, "Oh yeah, on one street for a couple of blocks or a couple streets over, there's some demonstrations and a bit of rioting and stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." But then the news makes it seem like it's, the whole city and it's a couple of streets.
yeah. I like your holistic attitude about getting a bit from everywhere. I must take
Mhm.
take your lead on that one. But yeah, it's funny how things get blown out of proportion. There could be a tussle on some street corner, and then yeah, there's riots happening. So yeah, I think as a traveler, you just got to keep your eye open on things that are happening, um,
Mhm.
and take as you said, take the news with a grain of salt sometimes. Um, go with your instincts. So I go with my gut instinct and being really self-aware when you're walking around and if something's not right, you get out of there quick. Um, and
Mhm.
know who can help you also if you're in a bad situation. But I
Right.
would
And I
agree.
always like to once I get to a place, it's doing the research before and even maybe checking out, even though I'm not big on mainstream media, but if I'm heading somewhere to try to check out some local news, if they have something that's in English that I could read some local news and stuff. I don't really go too much by YouTube because a lot of those are just like rainbow butterfly. Everything is great in such and such place. But looking in and then once I get somewhere to ask, even if it's the check-in desk or the Airbnb people, "Hey, is there" this is what I've heard, if you've heard stuff, or are there areas or places where I need to be more careful, or maybe I shouldn't go, or certain times, and asking the local people because if you're staying in their hotel or you're staying in their apartment, they don't want you getting hurt or something happening. Would be it's
Mm,
not in their best interest for their place to be on the news of something happened to this tourist who was staying in in this place, and, they obviously want people to be safe and enjoy that destination and come back. So if there were places, and then also I travel a lot by myself. So if I go out to eat, I usually will go, if I'm in a restaurant, I'll try to strike up a conversation with the server there if they're not too busy. Or if I'm at the bar, sometimes I'll sit at the bar so then I can chat to the bartender. And the bars are usually
Mm,
fairly social places, so I'll eat at the bar and talk to other people that are at the bar, the bartenders, and that's a great way too. That I say, I'm going to see these things because they're touristy and I'm a tourist, and so I definitely wanna check them out, but where would I go that tourists don't know? What are some great where do you go and eat? Where do you
mm,
hang out? What things do you do? And to see, I mean, sometimes they're a lot younger than me, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, that's kinda too young of a crowd for me to do that," or whatever, but it gives me an idea of what's going on in different places or where locals hang out, and some otherwise great things to do to see more of that culture, that lifestyle, what it's like away from the tourism and touristy things, because unfortunately, as I travel more and more people are traveling, and I've been to about 50 countries. So I've been to a lot, but what I'm starting to really see that I've noticed over the last few years, other than monuments and certain things, a lot of the souvenir shops that are around all of them are almost becoming the same. And I really
mm,
feel a lot that tourism shop, everything that's in that store, you could take off Italy, or if it's more specific, Florence or Rome or whatever, and put Barcelona, Madrid, and everything else is the same. Like, they're not unique things to it. They're not traditional. They're just that tourism crap of stuff. And if you're going to one of the monuments in Rome, you're passing several of them, which I get, and people are making money, but then it just becomes the same. But you see the beautiful monument, and it's nice. But a lot of these places that are becoming super touristic-y, I like to look for unique things and very local because I'm there. I don't want all of my money going to these big corporations who have places all over. Like, I wanna to buy things or get souvenirs or things that are really locally made. Like, I don't wanna shop at Zara because Zara's everywhere in the world. Why, "Oh, yeah, I was in Italy, I bought this in Zara." I coulda just went wherever. I want something from Italy, ideally made in Italy, or, something more local, as that
mm,
experience to help that country, that community, those people, not these massive corporations. I don't go to Starbucks. I wanna find if I notice something's a chain, I try to avoid it unless I know. I mean, sometimes I'll go if I know it's like Italy, for an example, like an Italian chain. So, still not great,
mm.
but at least better than the worldwide chain, but I'm looking more for that tiny little coffee shop, to have a coffee there, the restaurants where, I do my best if it's more of the local owned, and I'm sure some of them are some mid-range chains, I'll call them, where they're country specific, but not worldwide, but I definitely avoid the worldwide, uh, things as I'm traveling and going places because, well, I can have that at home whenever I'm at home, so
Mm,
why go somewhere to have the same things that I have at home? That just to me, it doesn't make sense.
yeah, I would agree. Those little coffee shops, you're going to get a more authentic experience in there. You're actually going to get an eye into what people, the locals, are doing. You go
Mm,
to the McDonald's or the Starbucks, you're just going to see everyone on their mobiles or all on their laptops using the free Wi-Fi. You mentioned something really interesting about food. If you want the best food in any place, look for the longest line where all the locals are lining up because usually it's got the best food and it's got the cheapest food. So
yeah,
that's one thing that I do no matter where I go. If it's lunchtime or if it's dinner time, I will look around and where's the biggest line? And that's where I'll you normally save a lot of money and you'll also get the best quality food.
I have a couple rules when it comes to food. If they display pictures outside, don't go there because they're showing pictures for all the tourists because it's,
Mm,
if it's a different language. And nothing within 2 blocks or 2 streets of any tourist, thing, whether it's, um, a monument or whatever it is that tourists go to, anything within 2 blocks
mm,
generally, there's the odd exception, but for the most part, those are places that are looking for the tourists, and they're not gonna be that
mm,
authentic local type thing, and a bit more sometimes, and you have to be careful, sometimes it's the smaller places. It's the smaller
mm,
places with just kind of the awning with a sign or just printed on the awning that just aren't flashy, aren't anything, and those are where the majority of locals will go and eat and have one. Like, I remember I was in Barcelona, my friend brought me to a place, it's like, "It's really great, it's a Catalan place," and I said, "Okay," and the menu was written by hand, it was just on a piece of
mm,
paper, all in Catalan, not even Spanish. I had no idea, I pointed to a couple of things, I couldn't read it, no idea
mm,
what the things were, um, but the food was really good and the place was really busy, and it was very
mm.
inexpensive. So you have to be a
Yeah.
little bit, in that case, it was a little I'm open to eating a lot of things. There's not many things that I would say no to, and in Spain, I mean, everything's pretty good. The only thing I have to be careful is more spicy food. I'm not big on spicy, but that's not a concern in Spain. They generally don't have too much for traditionally, it's not spicy.
Mm,
But in some situations, it is, "Okay, I'm gonna go," and if the person doesn't speak English, I point to things and I have no idea what I'm getting. Other times, if they have if they know a little bit of English, then what sometimes I'll say is, "Bring me your favorite." Again,
mm.
I have no idea what I'm getting. I don't know if I'm gonna like it or not, but I'm willing to try, and it's, "What do you have?" And if it's on the menu, especially a handwritten one, it's fresh. There's only, like, 12 things on there, and it was a 3 for their lunch, they have the entree, appetizer, and dessert, so it's like a 3-course, meal, and in all the times that I've done that, I don't recall ever having anything that I don't like or anything that was bad. It might be I find it a little too salty or I find it a little too, but that's just that kind of personal thing, but never something that I couldn't eat or just thought, "I don't like it."
Yeah. When you're traveling, you're up for anything, and that's the
Yeah,
beauty of it.
yeah, that's the experience, and so it's the travel, whether it's the slow travel, the short-term travel, the long-term travel, or even, being on scouting trips to move abroad, and then even you do move and you get there, there's so many restaurants. Um, as I have said, my friend in Barcelona, he's always finding new places and he's like, "Oh, I found a new place. We'll go here. I found this place." And we're always discovering, some of it is local and some of it is other expats who've moved there from whatever country and they've opened up something for food from their home country and it's always trying new and different things and that's the joy of the diversity of the world, is we have
Mm,
all these types of foods that we can try, all these different cultural things that people celebrate and enjoy, and it's just being open to all of it because it's, as you said, the world would be very boring if we all liked the same thing.
yeah, totally agree. It's
So
wonderful.
well, Linda, if people wanted to get in touch with you because you are the Smart Travelista and they had some questions or some were interested in some of the things that you offer, you've written several books, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So, probably my website is the first place to start. So it's thesmarttravelista.com. But I'm pretty much on every social media. So you can find me on X, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn. Um, they can send me an email via my website. Always up for a chat. I love travel questions. I get my best ideas from conversations with people. So yeah, please feel free to reach out, and yeah, explore some of the resources I've got on the website. Really focus on money management, and one of my true loves is also shopping. So if anyone's a big shopper, I've got a lot of travel and shopping articles on my blog, but also money saving tips. So yeah, happy for anyone to
Perfect.
reach out to me.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that we add links to the show notes to make it even easier for people to connect. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Sally. It's been great. Thank you.